to see as the most vital jolt of reality that a coddled young generation like myself in modern America needs, and it comes from North Korean defector Yeonmi Park. I honestly left this video with gratitude for even the most ordinary things and values we take for granted, and I think that's exactly what students at the Atlantic University also realized when Yeonmi gave the vital contrast between the most brutal communist dictatorship that exists in the world today. Watch this clip before I tell you more about it.
Hi, I'm Alana.
The first time. Okay, guys, my first time checking this out, and I want to check it out with you guys. So before we get started, we have some amazing people watching us for the first time. If you're new to the channel, hello, I'm Vera. I do reaction videos. If this is something that you love, why not join Vera City? Hit the subscribe button below, turn on the post notification bell so that you can always be the first person to know whenever a new video drops. And that's, guys, let's go.
So since you've been in America, what is one thing that you think America or Americans take for granted that you love?
It's choice.
Choice.
I don't think Americans understand what a unique thing to have a choice. Choice to where you live, what you do, who you marry, what you even eat. When you go to restaurants, you have at least dozens of them to choose from. In North Korea, we don't have a cookbook because nobody can afford the ingredients to make different kinds of food. So I think that's what I see, that Americans don't understand how unique the way of life is here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alejandra. I'm from Venezuela, and I experienced not the same scenario, but obviously the dictator over there is a friend of Kim Jong-un, and I just have a question because the way I see the generation now is that they're so indoctrinated that there's pretty much no way to revert that damage that the left have caused. And do you think any possibility that we can change that in the near future, maybe?
Yeah, thank you. I definitely see that. I think, like people from Venezuela, Cuba, or Iran and North Korea, none of them want to live under socialism. That's why we escaped. And all these people living in democracy, they want to bring the socialism to this country. And the reason why I think they think that way is because of the American education system became a huge propaganda tool. It became an indoctrination camp, like North Korean schoolrooms. And I think once we realize what is getting into our children's minds, and also we realize how American media became liars, and they became a propaganda tool as well. Once we see that, and this hijacking of these big institutions, then I think we can change that. But first is definitely education, that our children getting brainwashed, and my son is too. I worry about that every day, and people really don't understand how bad it got in this country right now.
And what else do you even expect? The education system you see today is heavily permeated by Marxist reading of economics and society, and it's reflected in the fact that liberal professors in America outnumber conservative-leaning professors by a factor of 12 to 1. Of course, I think it's safe to say that basically none of the sympathy of socialism is coming from a place of admiration for dictatorships like North Korea, but rather a complete misunderstanding of free markets and capitalism as a system of producing the material wealth these students enjoy. Poll from last year showed how the rise of the socialist millennial is certainly a real thing, as nearly 43% of people aged between 18 to 34 in the US believe socialism is the ideal economic system. All of that comes from the utopian visions of socialism they've been shown with models like the Nordic countries and the demonization of free markets that happens way too often in academia. Young college students may actually be the most prime for this kind of programming because students are often struggling to find their feet in life financially, and the idea of cold economic competition under capitalism looks like the roots of their troubles. Granted, there's a lot that's wrong with America's capitalist system with things like corporatism and crony capitalism. In that case, the markets need to be freed up even more rather than changing the fundamental economic system of this country entirely. But that's a conversation for another day. Right now, I think this kind of disillusionment you're seeing in students with modern America and the enchantment with socialist countries is a combination of two things: a complete lack of self-awareness at how the systems and materials wealth they benefit from is the result of fundamental ideas of individualism that lie at the root of this country's founding, and secondly, a complete ignorance and ungratefulness at how difficult it is to achieve for most other nations across the world. Perhaps all it takes is someone like Yeonmi to give them the big picture perspective to young American students.
Hi, my name is Danny. You talked a lot about human rights activism. What's a good way for a college student to get involved with that? What's a good first step?
Yes, first step is do not join the United Nations. I mean, they are the biggest, most useless organization I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Whoa.
I'm sorry, but I have spoke at UN multiple times and complete degenerates. I'm so sorry. They let North Korea, China, Saudi Arabia, they let them decide who are the human rights violators. This is a joke, right? It's a show. So when you want to become a human rights activist, I think it's really important to find your own path and not following this mainstream. And BLM people say they are like fighting for human rights too, right? So it's not at this point embarrassing to even say that, because human rights got hijacked by so many social justice warriors. They're like, what are you actually fighting for? So yeah, I think.
Wow. She said the UN is a complete joke. And she said they're a useless organization. Oh my goodness. I love the fact that she's not scared to say things as it is. Like, she is out here spitting facts without missing words. I love that. I feel like she needs to talk at every college. She is a woman of wisdom. A lot of Americans, they don't understand how good they have it. They don't understand what they are enjoying. Let's go on.
Don't look for big institutions, and it needs a lot of innovation. So think about it as a business. We need to innovate these NGO spaces as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a smart take that I haven't heard that often. Perhaps as the world becomes increasingly decentralized, human rights efforts will also need to be taken away from large NGOs who have vested interest and handed to those humans themselves. That's because most NGOs today are left-leaning or progressive anyway, and that can very easily dilute the idea of human rights by attaching them to social agendas. That's what you see on the climate change front, as well as organizations like Amnesty International and Oxfam that work in the global economic sphere, forwarding many of these same left economic policies that we see promoted in the West. I think Yeonmi herself is a pretty good example of the kind of decentralized true activism I just mentioned. She's also doing her people back in North Korea the best service by simply bringing up their story and suffering out in the public conversation. She doesn't need to be part of an NGO for that, nor an intergovernmental body like the United Nations to do that, and I would say that she's doing a favor even to American students that listen to her and receive the vital contrast and global perspective they're missing. Studies and statistics have consistently shown that young American students lack the world perspective that they need, and how their home country of the United States forms a part of that big picture. Because every time they do, they realize that the values and systems they are so used to chastising are almost an unattainable idea for most places in the world today. Yet unfortunately, in modern America, the education system, which is supposed to be the intellectual engine of a country, has become a mere vehicle for drilling a resentment in the younger generation against the admittedly perfect systems their ancestors have built, and all that while having a myopic and American-centric view of the world that fails to see things against their contrast.
I was just wondering, I've also read your book and you said you experienced discrimination there, but I was wondering, is there still a big population of North Korean people who stay in South Korea, or do you think the majority of them defect? But I know, as you said, it's a very small amount who actually make it to America. So if not America, are they just staying in South Korea or going elsewhere?
Oh, mostly they are in China, captured.
Okay.
So majority of North Koreans are in China, and they end up in 4 places as a North Korean defector in China. One is you end up in organ harvesting. So they buy you and take your organs out and discard you. Second is you are bought in these brothels. you until you die. Usually you die in 6 months. And then third place is where a town of men buy a girl, ship in and buy a girl, and then they rotate and she dies out. And last place is sex chat rooms, where they lock these girls indoor and they make them to perform sex acts in front of the camera. And then for that, these girls get fed and get, hidden place. So this is happening, and this is a thing. I am here because there are, as I said, 300,000 of them are trapped in China and don't know if there's any life for them. And I've been trying to spread this message in America, in the land of the free. And one of the producers last year in Hollywood wanted to make a movie out of my story from my first book. And he sent me a movie script, and he says, China was my promised land. When I got to China, they gave me protection and refugee. I asked him, what the heck are you talking about? Right? And he said, this is the only way we can make a movie about North Korea in Korean Hollywood, by lying about China. And that's why no Michelle Obama or Mark Clooney or none of these people would sit down with me, talk to me, because they all making money out of China.
Have you noticed that patterns as well? It's not just an embrace of collectivist and cultural Marxist ideas that seem to have found vogue with the international modern left, but also the countries like China that often bend the knee to it. If Donald Trump's rhetoric on China was too tough for the left's liking, then giving into China's cultural and media narrative is no way to deal with that country either. We saw a string of somewhat disturbing events in the last few years that demonstrate exactly this. For example, a couple years ago, we saw the NBA and former player Dwight Howard come out and apologize to China, and for what? During a playoff in Taiwan, he dared to call Taiwan a country during a promo video, which angered the Chinese fans since they don't consider Taiwan a separate country. Even Chinese state-run media Global Times called on him to offer a public apology for saying something which, by the way, is official American policy on the China-Taiwan conflict. When you put the pieces together, all you see is a country that's losing the core values that make it great, while also losing the grit and courage that comes from it. But if people like Young Mi can keep serving the younger generation that reality check, we may still have time to correct the course.
Wow. Guys, did you hear what she said about China? How they were treating those girls. They rape them, put them in front of camera, make them do stuffs. That's really so sad. It's really sad hearing all of that. Oh my God. I love the fact that this woman, she's fighting for American values. She's an escapee from North Korea. They're protesting against the human rights abuses in North Korea. Park, Park, I have a huge respect for her. My first time hearing her speak, and I must say I am impressed. This is crazy. She knows what she faced in her home country. Like when she speaks about her home country, you can feel that fear, the sadness, the way her voice shivers. She definitely has been through enough, and this is just so sad. Americans don't know how good they have it. They don't know. What are your takes on this? What do you guys think about this video? Drop your comment down below. I totally enjoyed this. If you enjoyed this video as much as I did, give it a huge thumbs up and please share this video. And if you're new to the channel, join VeraCity. Hit the subscribe button below, turn on the post notification bell so that you can always be the first person to know whenever a new video drops. And that's guys, I'll see you in my next one. Bye guys.